It's Mark Yegge. Welcome to another weekly market pulse. It's February 21st. Hope you're having a great week. It's been a long green market, over a month long now, and I hope you've been taking advantage of it because it's like, when you get the odds in your favor, that's the time to kind of push. But I think things are changing a little bit. I'm going to show you why I think these are changing and how you can probably, maybe take advantage of it. And that is just to play defense. So here's what we got going on. We've got three green lights right now, but these lights are a little bit tenuous. So I would say this is a tepid market. I would treat it more like a yellow market. Use caution. We got one red light in momentum. And so I don't feel like we're making new highs. In fact, I'm going to show you that in a second here. Here's the NASDAQ. It's making a series of swing points that are lower, right? 2204, 2118. I mean, not a lot lower, but it doesn't seem to want to go higher. Now, anything could change. I don't know anything. I just try to use the charts to make my probability selections. And I don't see a lot of reasons that this market could go higher, right? I mean, there's no news that's going to drive it higher unless they do an emergency Fed lowering of rates or something. And I still don't even think that'll do it. So right now, there's a lot of people taking profits, and that's preventing the markets from going up. Here's the NASDAQ. Here is the S&P 500. Same kind of thing. Made a new high, but wasn't very strong like last week. Dow Jones Industrial Average, kind of really disappointing, going down to test that 50-day moving average right there at the red line. It needs to hold it, but it's the weakest one of the three that I just showed you. And then you've got the New York Stock Exchange, which is now starting to show some weakness as well. So we're seeing some markets wanting to go down, and I think the move is to the downside. This could all change on Monday with a big day, but right now the moves are to the downside, it seems like. The volatility index, the VIX, is right at the mean. So there's not a lot of panic yet in the markets. You'll see some panic spike up when we get selling. But right now, I don't see a lot of buying. I don't see a lot of selling. It's kind of just tepid, like I said. I want to point out what I started to point out last week, and that's this gold story. And that is the US apparently is flying all this gold to Fort Knox from England. Well, regardless, England is emptying its cache of gold, basically. And there's something going on in the gold market. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know exactly, but I think other people know exactly what's going on. Here's the bugs index. This is the gold bugs index. This is how, they get the gold out of the ground. It's kind of all the other ancillary gold plays. It's not even close to making a new high. Look at the difference in how these charts look. This is pretty disappointing. You'd think they kind of go up in tandem. If the gold's going up, that means there's more money in the gold business, so the gold bugs would go up, but it's not. Keep an eye on the gold story, and keep an eye on this story too. This is the housing index, and you're seeing the housing index kind of making what I call a dreaded H pattern. It's a long leg down, a hump, and then at the bottom of the hump, if it hits the 666.58, we're talking about lower. And the housing index has a lot of jobs, and maybe that's an immigration play in there too. But the housing index is heading lower, and it's got a death cross that happened about 4 weeks ago. So watch out for that. Apple, some of our most traded. Apple looks strong to me, actually. It's back up above the 50-day moving average after hitting an intermediate low a couple weeks ago. It's over it 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 days above the 50. That's really constructive. Apple, to me, looks like it wants to kind of go and hit that 247 for sure, and maybe go up and hit that 260. I think it hit the 247 today, actually. And so that puts the 260 in play, and maybe that's a new high for Apple. I don't know. They got a lot of different revenue sources, so that's pretty good. MicroStrategy is right now heading down. There's not a lot of yummy stuff going on with MicroStrategy, so it's trading below the 50-day moving average. And until it gets above it, it's not getting out of its own way. So you got to be kind of careful on this thing. This is a Bitcoin play, and Bitcoin's kind of stuck in a range for some reason. We don't know. Tesla is also kind of making a little dreaded H pattern here. And I don't see a lot of strength in Tesla. We went down to 430 or something like that, or I'm sorry, 320. And then we had a bounce up to 363 or something like that. And now it's coming down the other side because all these people that were thrilled about that bounce are selling. And what's the good news in Tesla? I don't know right now. We're waiting for that full self-driving day to come. And we've been waiting for that day for a couple of years, and it's not here. So it looks like to me that if Tesla, has to hold this swing point right there where the arrow is. If it doesn't, I see 300 in play. I see this gap in play, even though it's got strong relative strength. I don't know. I'm a little worried about it. Amazon, I don't think there's a lot wrong with Amazon except this week, last 2 weeks actually, just kind of steadily going down, and now it's below the 50-day moving average. So, not a lot of good stuff. You start to see, do you see the theme I'm trying to paint here? Is like things are kind of wanting to go down. There's like a magnet stuck at the bottom, and these stocks are kind of being pulled toward that magnet. So there's some selling going on. Microsoft, this thing hasn't been able to get out of its way for 6 months, and it's just chopping around. Bad news, good news, whatever. To me, this looks weak. So Microsoft looks weak. Nvidia doesn't. It looks strong actually, but it's still having trouble making those new highs, 153. And that's probably because it's in what I call the late stage phase, which means a lot of people have already bought it and made their money. And now every time it goes up, those people are using it to sell the peaks, right? And so Nvidia, while it's fine, is not awesome, right? It's just kind of chopping around until it finds its legs. Alphabet, Google, this thing has had a lot of chop too. Like this is a hard one to stay in. From 193 here to 148, that's a 50-point move. That's 25%. Up to 202, 208, back down. I mean, this is crazy. So be careful with Alphabet. I don't know if they have a lot of good news. Like I'm not even using Google anymore. I don't know about you. I'm using ChatGPT to do my searches. And so I don't know how Alphabet is monetizing any AI for searches, but we'll figure it out. They probably have a plan. Meta, though, look at this. You get how many days in a row? 15, 16, 17 days in a row of blue on good volume. Things are going up, and now it's coming back down and testing the 21-day moving average. Things look pretty strong over in Meta, but it might be a little bit extended for this kind of market. All right. Let's see. I guess I'll do a couple more. Netflix decided to tell everybody that it's $25 a month. They're getting a lot of backlash, but every time they raise their rates, the stock goes up. This time is no exception. I just don't know if they're going to be able to sustain it because there's a lot of competition now for Netflix, Paramount, and Hulu, and Roku, and whatnot. So be careful about Netflix. Target is trending down. They got caught up in this wokeness, this DEI thing, where they converted they didn't care what it cost. They didn't care about the shareholders. And now pension funds are starting to sue them because they're looking at the stock chart going, maybe it was that DEI stuff that didn't really help the company make money for us, the shareholders and the pensions, and now they're suing them. So I suspect you're going to see a lot of news on some of these companies that had some of these programs in. And I'm not being political. I'm just being realistic and saying, look, there's some trouble with these companies that spend a lot of shareholder money to spend it on DEI. DEI doesn't make the company money, right? It's not like building a factory. It's creating a culture that's diverse, and maybe you can make a case for it, but I think the stock is making the case for us. Palantir, this one had a beautiful gap up above $85. This gap here wants to get filled. The last 2 days are high volume and they're increasing volume. The stock hit 95 yesterday. I just put out a video on this on YouTube. So check that out. But I think we've got 85 in store for this and 63 even below that. So there's a couple of spots on the chart that you got to watch out for in Palantir. And that makes sense, right? Think about it. If you bought it here at 84.80 and it ran all the way up to $125, you're going to start taking some of that profit. So you don't have to give it back up to 84.80, right? And here's another chart of NVIDIA, but this is from last year where it gapped up. Looks almost the same, doesn't it? It gapped up, ran all the way up to 140.76, and it came back down and filled that gap, and then it went back up the other way. So interesting patterns going on out there. Be careful on some of these high flyers that go up and then they come back down because they round trip, and you don't want to round trip, okay? United Health Group, and I'll end on this. It's a bad note to end on, but I think they're in the crosshairs. They've been overbilling Medicare. I saw a story about they sell a $17 drug for $2,400, and that stock is now making this dreaded H pattern and heading lower. I think there's all kinds of lower involved, under 400, under 320. There's many, many swing points on here that are going to get tested as this company gets in the crosshairs of Doge and the administration. And if they have been committing fraud, there's going to be shareholder lawsuits, and you don't want to be involved in this one if it's on its way down. All right, so I didn't have a lot of good news. Sorry about that, but I just want to be realistic that right now there isn't a lot of good news in the market. There's not a lot of things that are going to push it up, and so we got to be really, really careful. And so you got to play this a little bit to the downside. The way we play it was we sell in the money calls when we get markets like this, depending on our trading plan. Right now it's kind of still green, so we have to play it still green. But I think we're going to see in the next few days that we're not going to be so green anymore. It's been a month of green. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining me on the Market Pulse, February 21st. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.